This morning, a journey inside the most secret place in the world. Good Morning America broadcasts live from the headquarters of the CIA. Ahead, live, the CIA's mission, its challenges, and its controversies.
From ABC News, this is a special edition of Good Morning America. Good Morning America Undercover, live inside the CIA. Security, secrets, spies. With Charles Gibson, live at CIA headquarters in Langley, Virginia.
And Good Morning America, we do welcome you. I'm Charles Gibson, broadcasting this morning, this Tuesday, November 29th, from the headquarters of the Central Intelligence Agency, really the heart of the U.S. intelligence community. And you're going to see a lot of this building this morning. We're going to take you up to the Operations Center, for instance, going 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And on the giant screens that are in the Operations Center, well, they can put up any broadcast from around the world, and they can also let you see any country or any city or any home overseas through satellite technology. We're also going to have a chance to talk this morning with Porter Goss, the director of the CIA. That's a rare interview. When the CIA misses something, as before 9/11, or when its intelligence is faulty, as was the case with weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, well, everybody sees its failures, but its successes by nature have to remain secret. So we will talk with him about the mission of the agency, and as he tries to demystify it a bit, what that actually means. Well, Robin, no one walks right into this building. You don't just come right in. There are all sorts of layers of security. This is probably one of the most secure places in the world. And I mention all those layers of security. They go from the low tech, because there are bomb-sniffing dogs, to the high tech bomb-sniffing robots. Both get up close and personal when you come into this place. The eyes of the agency always on you. There's an army of well-armed security guards who watch and listen to your every movement on camera or in person. So as I say, no one gets in or out unless these officers allow it, but all of you watching at home today will come in via Good Morning America, and we will have a chance to look at the Central Intelligence Agency. All that coming up. All right, Tony, back at the headquarters of the Central Intelligence Agency. No tourists allowed here, needless to say. And this is not a place that is terribly inviting to cameras. As we were shooting pictures around the CIA yesterday, one fella came up to us and said, "You're not taking my picture, are you?" And we didn't have to ask why. We assured him that we were not. I'm actually standing in a hallway with pictures of all the directors of the CIA. I had a chance to talk with the present director, Porter Goss, yesterday in the Operations Center. A couple of things to note. Number one, you'll see some red lights flashing in the Operations Center. That means there's someone in the room that does not have security clearance. In this case, namely me. It is interesting that Director Goss has to walk a fine line because he wants to give you a sense of the agency's mission, but at the same time, obviously, cannot give away any secrets. Here's our conversation. Mr. Director, give me some idea of how you want to change this place. What your vision for it is and how it's going to be different, say, 5 years from now.
I think I want a leaner headquarters, a little less regulation, a little red tape disappear. And I want to see a greater focus and understanding of the mission overseas. The vision of an overseas operating team is the vision we're trying to portray here. And we're getting there. Now, we're going to take a lot of young people, and it's going to take a number of years to build that cadre up. But we're doing innovative things and putting people overseas in different ways than we've ever done before. It's a new game.
We sat down for a conversation in the CIA Operations Center, a classified room rarely seen by outsiders. If something goes really wrong in the world, the call that you get comes from this room, I would imagine.
Good likelihood of that, yes.
What's the call you most dread?
I think the call I most dread is another attack on the United States in a way that we did not anticipate. We missed something.
Does it keep you awake at night?
It does from time to time. Yeah, it does. There's another part of this, and that is it's not just terrorism. We're a global organization, and we're responsible for what's going around the globe, eyes and ears on it.
What do you wish you knew more about that you don't know?
What I wish I knew more about now was how to penetrate into some of the sanctuary areas. They can be in harsh terrain that is just hard to manage, or they can be in the heart of a city, in a ghetto or a slum area where people don't regularly go and things can be going wrong. knowing how to find those places and get in and penetrate them, I think is going to be the hardest part of this business.
Just in the last 24 hours, I asked a number of people, how do you judge the agency and what's the litmus test to judge the agency's effectiveness now? And they all said to me, in differing forms, why can't they find two men, bin Laden or al-Zarqawi?
Well, primarily because they don't want us to find them, and they're going to great lengths to make sure we don't find them. And I assure you, we're employing a lot of efforts to find out where they are. And I don't want to get into the depth and the details, but we know a good deal more about bin Laden and Zarqawi and Zawahiri than we're able to say publicly.
Let me ask you about torture. You said the other day the CIA does not do torture, correct?
That is correct.
How do you define it?
Well, I define torture probably the way most people would in the eye of the beholder. What we do does not come close, because torture in terms of inflicting pain or something like that, physical pain or causing a disability, those kinds of things that probably would be a common definition for most Americans, sort of you know it when you see it. We don't do that because it doesn't get what you want. We do debriefings because debriefings are the nature of our business, is to get information, and we do all that. And we do it in a way that does not involve torture, because torture is counterproductive.
We reported in the past 2 weeks about having talked to a number of people who have worked and did work in this agency, about 6 progressive techniques, each one harsher than the last, to get terrorists to talk, including things like long-term standing up, sleep deprivation, exposure for long periods of time to cold rooms, or something called waterboarding, which involves cellophane and over the face and water being poured on an individual. Do those things take place? You know what waterboarding is, though, right?
I know what a lot of things are.
Would that come under the heading of Would that come under the heading of torture?
I don't know.
Well, under your definition that you just gave to me of inflicting pain.
Let me put it this way. I'm not going to comment on any individual techniques that anybody has brought forward as an allegation or has dreamed up or anything like that. What we do, as I've said many times, is professional, it's lawful, it yields good results, and it is not torture.
There have also been stories in the press in recent weeks about a covert prison system or secret prisons, some of which may exist in Eastern Europe for the holding of suspected terrorists. Why do we need that?
We're fighting a war on terror. We're doing quite well in it. Inevitably, we are going to have to capture some terrorists, and inevitably they are going to have some due process, and inevitably that is going to happen, and it's going to be done lawfully and under all of the law and order and protections of due process that this country affords.
Why should people believe in or trust the CIA?
Well, we are perhaps the gold standard by any measure in terms of human intelligence. We don't get it right every time, but I don't think there is anybody who can come close.
But the task that you have is really, it seems to me, to restore or to win back public confidence that this agency is as good as everyone wants it to be.
It's the old story of the airplane landing successfully time after time after time, and the one time it lands and has a blowout or an accident, that's the news. You can argue it, but I think when you get through at the end of the day, we are the preeminent human intelligence collection agency in the globe.
And we will have more from the CIA a little later, including more of that interview with the director. We asked the CIA to create a little mystery for us, and the first part of it involved a dead drop. I was out in front of the agency in dark this morning, and just under a tree, what looked like a perfectly normal piece of wood. And yet, there was a little end you could pull out, and inside, a message. And the message said, "Go where the spoken word cannot be heard." Well, actually, that leads us to a place in the CIA that is also somewhat secret, and we'll show you that in the next half hour. Some of the CIA's techniques. Back at the CIA, the Operations Center. This is a room that operates 24/7, and if a situation develops in the world, these people will be among the first to know about it. And up on the screens right now, Al Jazeera and the BBC, but anything could be projected there, be it satellite spy photography, computer imaging. If you can think it up, chances are they can project it on those screens. In this half hour, we're going to talk to some of the men and women who work for the CIA. It is not a James Bond, Aston Martin existence, but what is it that attracts people to an agency that forces them to essentially live their lives in secret? And also this half hour, we'll take you to the secret training facility for the CIA, what they call the farm. Barbara, Robin, I posed the question a moment ago. What is it that would make someone want to work for an agency where you essentially can't tell your friends or family what it is you do every day? Well, we talked to one clandestine officer in shadow and a number in daylight about what it is that attracts them to the most secret agency in the world. Just say the word spy and all kinds of images come to mind.
You might think that people who come into the clandestine service all need to fly planes or be skilled at jumping out of planes and handling automatic weapons and self-defense and speak languages and rappel down the side of buildings and pick locks and act pretty much like Sidney Bristow does on Alias.
Lindsay Moran is a former clandestine officer for the CIA. Her days in the shadows are over. She left the agency in 2003.
We jumped out of planes and we learned how to crash cars through barriers. We drove speedboats around.
She says that part was actually fun, but being a young woman in the agency came with difficulties.
I was single and approaching 30 at the time when it's hard enough to even, get a date. And the agency was very explicit that you should make yourself sound as boring as possible.
But she also says being female may have made her a better agent.
In most parts of the world, the people that we're targeting, the foreign agents that we want to recruit, are men. And it's a lot easier as a young woman to approach a foreign man and suggest that you go out for coffee or to dinner.
You want somebody who's thinking a little bit outside the box. I know that's a worn phrase, but that's what you're trying to get to. People who are a little bit on the fringe.
And if you get tapped to serve in the clandestine services, much will be asked of you.
People who are in the clandestine service, by nature, are fundamentally lying and stealing for the U.S. government.
This man did just that, spending decades in the CIA. One time, he even had to plant a bug in the home of a coworker.
It was done at the height of a cocktail party, and I was at some point in a tuxedo lying on my back drilling a hole in a desk.
And keeping his own cover, he learned that even his own mom could not be trusted.
As far as I know, she shared it with every friend she had, but by that time I was fairly well along in my career.
Just yesterday, we were invited to the CIA swearing-in ceremony, a first for broadcast television. These new officers could only be videotaped from behind.
And that I will faithfully discharge the duties.
For some of these just sworn-in clandestine officers, this ceremony will be the first and last time they will ever be publicly acknowledged as employees of the CIA. Some of the people at this ceremony are here completely alone. No one in their lives knows what they do. Not wives, not mothers, not brothers. Imagine that.
Leading a double life is exhausting and also takes a huge toll on your personal relationships.
Lindsay Moran became disillusioned with the agency and decided to leave.
I found quitting the CIA to be almost as hard as getting in.
And on the personal front, Moran was finally able to tell the man she would eventually marry what she really did for a living.
He said, I always thought there was something kind of shady about you.
One thing that should be noted here at the CIA, it's right in the lobby, 83 stars on the wall in honor of those members of the Central Intelligence Agency who gave their lives, 83 who were killed in the service of the Central Intelligence Agency, in the service of their country. And you'll notice there are no names attached to the stars. Down below, a book. There are some names here, people who can be identified, but still 34 of these stars remain anonymous. So my first clue was a place to talk where you can't be heard. Well, this is a wave tunnel, one of the many serpentine tunnels inside the CIA, totally soundproofed and baffled, so that anything said at one end of the tunnel can't be heard at the other. And it is also totally impervious to any kind of electronic surveillance. Oh, and I should also mention that young woman who just passed me. Well, we carried out what they call a brush pass, and she gave me a pen. And inside the pen, it's hollow. Inside the pen, a little piece of paper. And on the paper, it says, Kryptos. And oh, by the way, if you don't want to get caught with the paper, well, you might just be carrying a water bottle. Open it, drop the paper inside, and shake it up. It's totally water soluble, the paper's gone, and the water is perfectly comfortable to drink.
Coming up on Good Morning America, Undercover, live inside the CIA. Security, secrets, spies. Ahead, how the CIA's Master of Disguise has a new mission, helping everyday people get their identity back.
You are looking live at the CIA headquarters, the new part of the headquarters. This is the most secure place in the world, as Good Morning America brings you an unprecedented look inside the halls of America's intelligence gathering machine. And Good Morning America, I'm Charles Gibson. We welcome you Tuesday, November 29th, and we do broadcast from the CIA headquarters. Actually, I'm standing in front of the new CIA headquarters building that was built in the 1980s as the agency expanded. And one of the interesting things about this building, it is a building within a building. There is an outer shell and then an inner building that is designed to protect everyone inside from electronic surveillance. Coming up on this half hour, we're going to introduce you to a man who for many years was the CIA's Master of Disguise. He could take people, totally transform their looks if they were working in a foreign country. Now he has put his skills to an unusual use, making prosthetics for people who have been severely injured. And we are also, a little bit later, going to show you the burn bags, the way the CIA disposes of material. It's a way that you might not expect. It is almost impossible to recreate any kind of a document that has been shredded coming out of here. But we're going to show you now more of my interview with Porter Goss, the director of the CIA. We had a chance to talk yesterday. It's interesting. Goss is a former congressman from Florida, but for 10 years, from 1962 to 1972, he actually served as an undercover agent for the CIA, and he now heads the agency at a time where it is really under intense scrutiny. Mr. Director, give me some idea of how you want to change this place. You got 11 grandchildren?
I have 11.
What do you tell them about what you do?
I tell them I work hard.
But you're very invested in the success of this place, given the fact you have 11 kids. And
don't we all? We all should be invested here. The security of our country is absolutely vital.
Thanks very much, Tony. Well, I'm joined by Claire Shipman, who is going to introduce you to a man who, for 2 decades, was the CIA's Master of Disguise. He could create prosthetic devices that would transform the appearance of a CIA agent. He has now left the CIA and is putting his talents to an unusual use.
You know, Charlie, it's interesting. The story of how Bob Barron even got to the CIA in the first place is like a classic spy yarn. He was hauled before a judge for forging a Pentagon parking pass a little bit too well. That led to a recruitment call from the CIA. So many people are grateful today that he got that call. And before we show you this report, we should warn you that some of the images of the people Bob Barron has helped over the years can be difficult to watch.
One suspicious-looking eyebrow, a questionably placed ear, fatal results. As the CIA's top master of disguise for spies and double agents, Bob Barron was well aware of the stakes as he created hundreds of faces and new identities.
I had to put people in hiding, and I knew that the disguise had to pass closest of scrutiny to 6 to 12 inches.
His lab bursts with spare parts, eyes, fingers. Need an ear? His life for nearly 25 years, the definition of cloak and dagger. He was often undercover himself as he traveled the globe remaking agents.
If they didn't have the right disguise, then their life was in jeopardy.
He helped push the agency from its traditional hat and trench coat days like these, remember 3 Days of the Condor, to this.
You keep calling me Dmitri. You really shouldn't.
Incredibly intricate, lifelike silicone masks as seen in Mission Impossible. Hollywood, in fact, beckoned when Barron retired, but he had something else in mind. He couldn't shake images like these he'd seen at a conference. People who truly needed his help.
If you can change someone's identity, then you can give that person their identity back with prosthetic devices. Wow.
Wow, indeed. So Barron has devoted the last 10 years to giving severely disfigured people new faces. Well, more accurately, a way to be themselves again, well beyond what surgery alone can provide.
You just look straight ahead and we'll get started.
Ryan Romans was born with microtia, a birth defect that left him missing an ear. For 18 years, he's kept his hair long and his attitude tough against the prying glances and cruel whispers.
I am who I am, so I just kept thinking that, so if you didn't like it, sorry.
Months of painstaking work paying off today, Barron literally baking the silicone ear in an oven, painting on finishing touches. The end result, overwhelming for his aunt.
Looks kind of real, doesn't it?
It does look real. And pretty cool for Ryan.
Wow.
Now, does that look like an ear or what?
That looks like an ear.
And beyond providing a normal look, the ear will actually help Ryan's hearing and allow him to fulfill his dream to be an emergency technician, actually be able to wear a stethoscope. Barron is a perfectionist. Capillaries, hair follicles, real hair, you name it, it's there.
I made the eyebrows look exactly like his eyebrows.
Those look startlingly real.
Clients quickly become second family, a strong bond formed with the man who's made it possible for them to avoid the stares, the public humiliation. It's that mixture of devotion and newfound confidence that brought Joyce Codell into Bob's office, determined to show us the miracle he'd wrought after her devastating bout with skin cancer. We must warn you, the following image may be disturbing.
How hard is it to get on and off?
Well, would you like to see?
If you don't mind.
I don't mind.
Oh my. So there are little magnets in there.
It's held on by magnets attached to the gold frame.
And then you just put it right back on.
This woman, so bravely exposing her tragedy a few years ago, couldn't even leave her house.
My husband, he had changed the bandaging for over 2 years before I could face a mirror.
The master of disguises has clearly found his true calling, bringing people out of hiding.
My daughter and my son, they have never hesitated for a moment to go out in public with me. But I'm sure they feel better too, knowing that I have a face once again, thanks to this man.
Bob Barron has also worked with survivors of September 11th at no charge, including one woman who was severely burned at the Pentagon. He studied to be an artist, and I think by any definition of that word, he succeeded. Charlie?
All right, Claire, I'm actually standing now behind the solution to the third part of the mystery that the CIA set up for us. If you were watching last half hour, you saw I got a brush pass and a little piece of paper inside a pen that said Kryptos. Well, Kryptos is the name of a sculpture that is here in the gardens of the CIA, and it really is a monument to cryptography, created by an artist by the name of James Sanborn. And there are codes built into the 4 parts of this statue. Actually, people have been able to solve 3 of them. One, the words of Howard Carter when he went into King Tut's tomb. Second part is a poem. The third part, directions to an unknown location. And the fourth part, well, the fourth part hasn't been solved yet. Probably because Kryptos means hidden in Greek. You can come try to work this out if you can see most of it. Mission Impossible, the CIA, depicted in so many movies about spies. The most famous, of course, being James Bond, but he's a British spy. American spies depicted in new movies like Syriana, old movies like Mission Impossible, 3 Days of the Condor. Just how accurate are they? Well, we're going to talk to the man who is the liaison from the CIA to movie makers in this half hour. There's a couple of things I want to show you about the CIA. One of the things that fascinated us, how do you dispose of a top secret document? Well, it turns out all over the place you see bags like this. They are burn bags. And if you have something that might be some sort of a secret document, you just drop it in the bag, but that is just the beginning of its journey. After the bags are stapled shut, the employee walks his or her trash to a designated chute. These chutes are located all over the building. The trash is thrown in, the bags are collected down below and taken to still another area. That's where they're ripped open, and the contents put on a conveyor belt for a trip into a giant shredder. But as you might suspect, shredding alone is not good enough around here. The chopped up documents are then burned in a special furnace. And guess what? That's still not enough. Water is then mixed into the ashes, and that's when the process is over. If you want to piece together any trash coming out of the CIA, you're going to be dealing with goop. Goop indeed. And I should point out actually that the power that is generated by that fire helps to heat and cool of the CIA building. Also, one other thing, there's a gigantic cafeteria, as you might expect, in this building, these buildings actually, because there's an old and new CIA. Thousands of people work here. The interesting thing, you could sit at that cafeteria and eat with somebody for years, and there's a good chance that you wouldn't know his or her real name, and you wouldn't actually know what they do for a living. And there's also a food court right in the middle of the CIA. It does seem strange that there'd be a food court here, just like there is in any shopping center around the country, but you got to feed these thousands of people who work here. Talked about the fact at the beginning of the half hour that the CIA depicted in so many spy movies, and you always wonder as you're watching those movies, just how accurate are they? Well, interestingly enough, the CIA has a man who operates as a liaison to movie makers. His name is Chase Brandon. He has been with the CIA for 34 years?
That's right.
25 years as an agent?
Undercover
Clandestine
service officer, yes.
And now working with the movie business.
From undercover to front cover, yeah.
It does seem sort of a strange transition.
It's a very strange transition.
How right do they get it?
Some get it reasonably correct. Some get it deliberately wrong because they've got an inherent message that they want to send about the agency. But in all cases, if someone wants to try to make a fair and balanced depiction of this agency and capture the heroism and bravery and dedication and patriotism of the men and women that make up this great organization, we will provide as much support to that film project, feature film or television, as we can.
There's a movie out right now, not a lot of people have seen it, Syriana with George Clooney.
Right.
He orders a hit in that movie. What do you say about that?
Well, Warner Brothers didn't approach us to ask for any input to the movie. They've got a former agency officer whose book I think they're basing their story on, and they're making their movie their way.
And what would you say? Yes, we do that? No, we don't?
It's a movie. They can make the movie any way they want to. If they want our help, it needs to be predicated on as much of a fair and balanced portrayal of how we actually operate as it can.
And what if you were asked to help and then you found that in the script there was a hit?
Our image is our reputation. And most of what the American public feels about us, I think, and has based their perception on us over the years is really from one of two sources. It's the small screen in the family room or the large screen at the local Cineplex. And for many, many years, we did not, unlike all other government agencies, we did not engage with filmmakers. And as a result, our image was not anything to do with our effort. It was how they chose to depict us. So finally, like other government agencies, we reached out and offered to provide assistance when those pictures were fair and balanced.
Let me come back to that question, though. If you were working on that movie and you found there was a CIA agent ordering a hit in the movie, what would you do?
In the context of a story, a fictional story, that might be perfectly fine. In the context of a fictional story.
Is it something the CIA does?
Go to the movies. See how we're depicted.
I give up. I give up.
You should.
Which movies have come close to getting it right?
There was a great Paramount Showtime made-for-TV movie called In the Company of Spies. And it probably captured, more so than any other project, the dedication, the heroism of the men and women that make up this organization. It showed how the science and technology, the R&D part, works with the analytical components that service the overseas clandestine operators, and all of that was made to work by the support people here who make the agency work every day anyway.
And which movies have made your skin crawl?
Well, I'm not a film critic, and it's probably not really altogether fair to say which movies this agency doesn't like officially, or that I don't like personally.
No, but just you thought they got it wrong. They don't have it what it's like.
Well, the peel-off masks on Mission Impossible were a little over the top.
Over the top.
Only because they didn't actually probably do our disguise people the degree of credit they're entitled to have.
And what is it that would most surprise, you're 25 years yourself in the field, what would most surprise people about the life that you live?
Sometimes the sense of being really a very, very long way from the actual homeland that you're working so hard to try to protect.
You feel very much alone sometimes.
You're pretty far out there sometimes in countries where very difficult circumstances prevail, where you're not with your family, haven't seen your family for a while. Or if you, in fact, you have your family there, they're every bit in as much the same danger as you are, and you're worried about them too. So it's not a career, it's not a job, it's a lifestyle, being in the clandestine service. It's a very different way of life.
It's a lifestyle, and it is a commitment.
It's an absolute commitment.
Thank you very much.
You bet.
Nice to be here. Thanks. I want to thank all the folks at the CIA for being so accommodating to us. I don't think they're totally comfortable with all these cameras that we've had around the halls, but they have been very nice, and we have not shot anybody that we weren't supposed to take pictures of.